Well, welcome everyone to Resource Roundtable. Resource Roundtable is an ongoing event every third Thursday of the month, hosted by EDC Team Jefferson. And it's a place where we invite one or more guests to come and introduce themselves and their services to the people of Jefferson County.
My name's Kim Carver. I've lived in Port Townsend for about 11 years. And I'm from Seattle, and I started in social media with the maritime community. There's a lot of boats out there, like ferries and tugs, and they're all in recreational boats. They don't know how they all talk to each other, and they have their own subcultures in the maritime community. And a lot of times when they're out on the water, they don't really understand the perspective of these other kinds of mariners. So I joined social media specifically and geared most of my first 10 years in social media specifically towards connecting these subcultures to help them understand, be friendly with each other, because that is my personal passion for my use of social media, and that is connecting people and lifting each other up. That's entirely where I come from in my approach to social media. So yeah, I started in MySpace groups back in 2004, connecting tall ship groups from both sides of the country, because it used to be like an East Coast versus West Coast thing. I started a really popular Facebook group among mariners back in 2008. I started a zine. I tried to go the Luddite way, because ultimately in my heart, I'm a Luddite. And so I did a paper zine, and I sent that across the world, actually. And then Jake Beatty over the Maritime Center saw what I was doing. We have a lot of connections to the Center for Wooden Boats in Seattle. He asked me to come run social media for the Maritime Center, which I started back in 2012. And then I started the first, we all helped create, and I started the social media for the Race to Alaska, which became huge social media and just all media. And what the Maritime Center did was they divided a lot of their brands into separate social media accounts. And we can talk, if anyone has a question about the usefulness or not usefulness of that later, I would love to explain how I feel about that. And then I worked for the Port Townsend School of Woodworking. I started with them. They had about 2,000 followers back in 2016. And it took me about 6 years to get 8,000 more genuine followers to this really beautiful spot on Instagram. Instagram doesn't really, unfortunately, don't take it personally, but they don't really value you until you're over 10,000 followers. They're not going to give your content exponential reach until the 10,000 follower mark has been hit, and they've decided you are valuable to them, because they are still a business. You got to think of them as a business, even though they are in the business of promoting social behavior. Well, their idea of social behavior. Anyway. I can explain later what genuine followers are, if you like to, if that doesn't make much sense. R2AK has mainly just stayed on Facebook real high, just because we started on Facebook. So they have 18,000 followers there. I tried to hit the 10,000 mark last year, but we didn't quite get there. We're almost there. And that is a real community-based account that's like, it started there, it started on Facebook, so it's probably going to stay on Facebook. It doesn't really translate well. Some things, not everything translates well to Instagram, but Instagram is the place to be these days. So I want to, I got to say one other thing though. We're only 12:10. Okay. My biggest thing that I loved was I share a lot of tips on my personal accounts and some public accounts on how to use social media. And I have a friend in town who has a friend at Facebook, and he said, "Is this true what she's saying?" And they said yes. So that was like a real win for me. I was like, yes, I'm on the right track, because it's really hard to know where there's so much content. You're looking, you're Googling. If you're using social media, you're Googling, what's going to make me successful in social media? What's going to get me more seen? Because a lot of people, when they're just starting a business page, a professional page, they're like, wow, this is such a struggle. Why is my content not good enough? Am I not good enough? It's not it at all. This is a business. They're trying to make money. Once you go to a page, Meta realizes you're a business, and they want you to pay for They want you to either work really hard, like dedicate your whole life to it, or they want you to pay to be seen. So it's just not free, you know. There are a lot of people out there. I won't call myself an expert in social media use or analytics. There are no experts. Why? Because it's constantly changing. It's constantly changing. When the high reach is really all, you know, the highest reach, unless it's some crazy, you know, I don't know, viral video that is just like usually a one-off by some account that just happened to catch some crazy thing. Really high reach, and if anyone doesn't know what reach is, let me know, is all about, reach is just how many people saw your content. That's all about money and compelling content. That's what high reach is, really high reach. Can get it. That's how you get it. I want to help people feel better about their stuff. The accounts in Port Townsend are in Jefferson County are pretty small. We have a couple accounts that are huge, and I've had a couple people. I have a lot of new clients this month, and I've had some of them say, "Oh, this person, they get so many views, and you know, I just don't think I have what they have." And some content just doesn't translate well onto social media. The biggest accounts that I know of, and that I've either talked to these people or even worked with them, are Andrea Animitz. She does the stop motion felted stuff. She made a movie. I mean, her stuff is just adorable, and it translates really well. She's got 2.2 million followers on Instagram. That is unheard of around here. Leo Sampson over at the Boatyard, his is a little different. K2 Clay, I think her name's Katie, and her product is like Andrea's. It's perfect for social media, just perfect. It's like, it just really, and she's good at editing, but really the product is, she does the faces on the clay. It just is perfect for social media. We've got Jim Tolpin, a renowned woodworker. He's written many, many books. He has a following based solely, I mean, a lot of his content is good, but he's written a lot of books, and woodworkers around the world know about Jim Tolpin. That's why he has so many followers. Leo, I would say specifically, he's getting so many followers because he is a very skilled video editor. He puts a lot of work into his video editing and to his presentation. And the work he puts in, he really does dedicate most of his life to his YouTube, his Patreon, his social media. And that is what pays his bills, as far as I know. So these 4 big accounts, you should not compare yourself to these, because unless you want to do, you know, 24/7, the work that Leo does, or if you have one product, one thing you can hold up and, like Andrea or Katie, that really translates well, then most people just don't. They just don't have that, and that's okay. We can still get you up to, you know, reaching for that 10,000 or not. A lot of what I'm going to show you today actually is not reaching for that 10,000. It's about making your Instagram kind of a storefront and using ads to really get seen, because Instagram is not going to give you the organic reach. Organic means unpaid reach that you need if you're going to use it to promote your product. So as far as the algorithm, that's what helps you get seen by more people. It changes daily, as far as I know. Maybe it's monthly, but it seems like it changes daily. And another thing, when you are looking up tips and tricks on how to use social media, trust about half of what you hear. It's hard to know which half. Just kind of keep sifting through information, and the stuff that seems to keep popping up, keep that in the back of your mind, because that's the stuff that enough people like me have noticed and are sharing, And so you're hearing a common thread. A lot of it, though, you'll hear a lot of people say, don't use hashtags, things like that. And those opinions just come and go. Just, it's hard to know exactly, because the only people who really know what's going to make you super successful at this actually create the algorithm, and they're not talking. Also, when you sift through Google to find out tips and tricks, check the date on the material. If it's 2 years ago, it's outdated. You want to look for, you can, in your search on Google, when you're looking up tips and tricks, you go to the tools, and where it says anytime, you click down and say within the last month, preferably, or this year, or I wouldn't even go the last year, just the last month or a couple months. You only want updated advice, because like I said, the algorithm is constantly changing. You don't want old advice. It's not going to help you. So as I explained before, I've been running these larger accounts for the last 6 years. And this month, I have been helping much, much smaller accounts. And oh my gosh, it's very humbling. The struggle is very real for everybody. Back in 2012, when paid ads came about, I noticed that organic reach, that means unpaid content, was being throttled. My stuff at the Maritime Center was being shown to fewer and fewer people, because what Meta is now, Facebook back then, they wanted your money, so therefore they're going to make you start paying for it. Back then, I would say about 16% of people that followed things actually saw the content. So like out of every 100 followers, people who had gone out of their way to say, I want to follow Race to Alaska or Northwest Maritime Center, out of every 100 of those people, when I would make a post, 16 of them would actually see it. So that's already feels small. And now it's down to 2% of the people on Facebook. And that's only if you have a personal profile. If you have a page, a business page, 1% of your Facebook followers, 1 out of every 100 people, are actually seeing it come up in their feed. On Instagram, it's a little better. It's around 10% for personal content. I'm sure it's less. I couldn't find an updated amount. I think it's like 6% for business. So that is very frustrating, right? It's like, we want people to see what we're posting. That's why we're putting all this work into it, and nobody is seeing it. Not any, like a handful of people are seeing it. That can be very frustrating. And I noticed when you use social media at a professional level, at a business level, like I have for over a decade now, you really see the fewer and fewer followers. And for a while there, it was like, I noticed that every ad I bought got the same, got fewer results for the same amount of money. So it almost feels like a gambling addiction, where you're like, oh, you just want to keep putting more money on it. So then I developed a tactic of where I would stop giving them money and go away for a little while, and then come back, give them money. And there was something about the algorithm, at least back then, that triggered them to say, oh, she's giving us money again. Okay, well, let's let a whole bunch of people see it. So if you have an instinct about how to trick the system, then go for it. Give it a try. I might have to put my glasses on and turn the light down so it didn't look so washed out in here. So for a lot of people to see your content, you have to buy an ad. And a lot of you have seen the option to boost this content. Meta wants your money, of course, so they're going to say, hey, boost this, and they want you to go with the easiest solution. Just click boost, let Meta decide who sees your ad. And you do not want to do that. You do not want to let Meta decide, because it's very, very easy for a I'm not going to, this is going to sound kind of conspiratorial, but you have no control. When you let someone else decide who sees your ad, you have no control over who sees it. That means a click farm somewhere, maybe in India. I don't know where click farms are. I've heard a lot of them are in India. Everybody gets a penny for clicking on your ad. And now it looks like, you know, you've gotten a lot of reach with that ad, but you haven't. It's not genuine. Those are not people who are going to come back and look at your product and consider buying your product. And so make sure you have total control over your ads. I'm going to start talking about ads, but before I go on, do I have any questions? Anybody? Miko?
You had talked about, 10,000 followers being sort of this point where exponential reach starts to happen. I know that most of us, if not all of us, are like, haven't even touched near that number, but I'm almost wondering, like, maybe you might speak to this later, but like when businesses should actually be striving for that or not, and sort of like what happens after that 10,000 that is beneficial, and is that benefit relevant to us or not? I don't know if that was a very articulate question, but yeah, sort of that threshold, like what maybe like what is exponential reach and what is the benefit of that, sort of?
Well, if you're trying to sell a product, obviously exponential reach, you know, it's going to go beyond that 1 or 2 or 10%, because it's just a whole other level on Instagram. The benefit is clear, and that
more visibility.
The more people that see your product, the more brand awareness, the more, I mean, it's reaching over that 10,000 mark is huge for brand awareness. Surprisingly, that 10,000 mark has stayed the same for a really long time, which is the only thing that has stayed consistent in Instagram over the years. Is it worth getting there if you only have like a couple thousand, 2,000 or under followers? I would say it is, unless you have a ton of money, and that means money to throw at content, which is paying someone that's their part-time or full-time job dedicated just to social media, which that's a ton of money, paying someone to do all that. You can do that, and I did that. I would say I spent about an hour or 2 a day on social media for the School of Woodworking for 6 years, and got over that mark. I got 8,000 genuine followers who genuinely interacted. I have no claim over what's happened. I haven't been there for a year, so I don't know how they're doing now. But so when you think about how much they paid me over 6 years versus buying ads, I mean, yeah, I gotta say, ads are the way to go. Ads are going to get you so much further in such a short amount of time. And people really have to think about their time as money, obviously, and their mental health, right? Like, making a reel can be really frustrating. And what I noticed are a lot of people are really hung up on making their content look perfect. And I've talked to a lot of people who they'll put something together and they'll spend hours on it, and then they'll be like, oh, forget it. And they won't even do it. And that will really start to give you anxiety after a while. Don't do it. Just make one really great thing and really great post, and spend money on it. All that money, save all of that time, creating more things and being frustrated or hiring somebody to do it. Just spend money on that ad. I'm going to go a little bit further onto what your page should look like if you're going to buy an ad. But first, does anyone else have any other questions, or are there any questions in the chat? I'm not seeing the chat.
Jay, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, is there any relationship between what followers do, like if they're looking for your page, and the algorithm shows how many either they'll get to see or others will get to see?
So if they're looking at your page, there's a lot of I don't know, I'm just trying to think of a random, so I was just trying to look for a user that I was going to recommend to all of you to follow, and I forgot her name. I forgot how to spell her name. And so I'm looking up different iterations of her name, and the most popular profiles on Instagram were showing up under those wrong names, if that makes any sense. So her name's Sydney, and I spelled it wrong like 3 times. And all of these other people were coming up. But what else came up was Sydneys that are in this area. So if your audience that you're trying to hit is in Port Townsend or Jefferson County or on the Olympic Peninsula, there's a good chance you'll show up when people are trying to search for you. There's a good chance you'll show up on the screen in the. Does that answer your question?
I'm not sure. What I was thinking, let's just take Race to Alaska. During the race, I tend to be more interested in it, and I may go, if I don't see anything, I may type in the search race to, R2AK. Now, is that going to affect whether I see more of them?
Oh, I see.
Or whether other people are going to see more?
Yes. Everything you look at on social media or Google or just about anywhere now is affected. It affects your searches in the future, unless you have installed some kind of elaborate anti-tracking stuff on your computer. Pretty much everything, every keystroke, every word. I mean, my phone's probably listening to me now. Everything you do is going to affect your feed later and your searches later. All right.
Okay. Yeah.
I think even like the duration of what, like it'll track how long you're looking at something on your feed, and then it's like, oh, they liked that for some reason and keep showing you stuff.
Absolutely. If you watch an entire reel rather than back out of it or a story, it's going to show you more of that. AI has got its hold on us, and it's tracking everything. YouTube is converting every single word we say right now in this, once this is posted on YouTube, and when someone later searches Port Townsend social media, this will probably pop up, because it's not just the things we're typing in or our captions, it's also everything we're saying now. Not to freak everybody out, but it's happening. So just, you're gonna have to deal with it if you're online at all. All right, I'm gonna move on and talk about ads. Well, first I'm gonna talk about well, hopefully I haven't made anyone too depressed about not reaching the 10,000. I'm sorry if I have. I just want to be realistic. I want to help you. I want to help your mental health too. What your Instagram profile should look like, if you're not going to dedicate a ton of time and to posts and constantly updating people, and you're going to go with the ads route, you should have your grid is when people go to your page, that's your grid. And the first 12 posts on your grid show up when anybody goes to that page. The people have to scroll down for others. So make sure you have 12 sharp looking images or videos that represent your brand. And that's your storefront, basically. What you really want to do is hone your bio, because your bio, your handle, your name under your profile picture, the words in your actual bio, the link, and your location, all of that, all of those things really help you when people are searching for content on Instagram. And I think Instagram obviously will even show up on Google. So that bio is super important. If your service or product, if your audience it has a regional border, like the EDC would be Jefferson County. Jefferson County, unfortunately, isn't a great keyword, because there's a Jefferson County in Colorado, and it's just, so you want to use towns or Olympic Peninsula. Include that in your bio. If you can include Port Townsend in your name or even your username, that's amazing. That is really going to help you. When you think about how people use hashtags, and some of you don't even use hashtags, but the way people use Instagram to search for content is they'll usually type in keywords or hashtags. And if Port Townsend is in your name, then you're going to be the first to pop up. So I strongly suggest, if you can, putting Port Townsend in your handle or your name, that you do that. If you're outside of Port Townsend, unfortunately, the other towns in Jefferson County are not visited as much. They're not the tourist towns. So it's less likely that people are going to search for Port Hadlock unless they live in Port Hadlock or they're visiting someone in Port Hadlock. So using the name Port Townsend is going to be more beneficial for anyone in East Jefferson County than any other thing in your name or your handle. So if you do those two things, you have the 12 sharp images, and you have the really honed bio, you can call it good. You can buy an ad every now and then. You can just not worry. You don't even have to buy ads. You can just use your Instagram presence as a way to funnel people towards the link, your website link, or some other link on that bio. Or you can buy ads, and you're still going to grow. You're going to grow your brand awareness. The ads are huge. But if you like to create content and you want to slowly grow your following, and you want to interact with the community, I strongly suggest sharing in stories. Sharing in stories is the best way and the easiest way to use Instagram. With Facebook, again, you want a sharp storefront, right? You want a good cover photo, you want a good profile photo, a few pictures, a few posts, and a honed bio, just like with Instagram. You want the bulk of what you want people to know about your business in that bio. Or when people search on Facebook, Instagram, Google, wherever, it's still going to show up, even if they're searching on Google, your Facebook and your Instagram profile. The big benefit to still being on Facebook is groups. Groups is an easy way of getting seen. The Port Townsend Community Group, regardless of where you live in East Jefferson County, a lot of those people that live in East Jefferson County are in the Port Townsend Community Group. I believe Wyatt, who runs that group, is still allowing people to post at least one post a week to promote your business. Take advantage of it. Get in there and do that. I think thousands of people will see it. I realize that group can be kind of toxic. It's kind of the reason a lot of people got off Facebook, because they start conversations that not everybody wants to engage in, and it gives them anxiety. Don't hang out to listen to the conversations. Just post about your product, and check in on the comments there, or tell people to please DM you or call you. You can put your information on there. But that is he has started a very good, I don't even think Wyatt lives in Port Townsend, honestly. But that is a very, very good resource for getting your brand seen locally. If you are on Facebook, whether you use that group or not, look for groups that match your product. So if you are like a landscaping company, then look for the Master Gardeners group on Facebook. If you like Andrea with the co-op, maybe if they want to get more products from different farms, I don't really know how that works with the co-op, but find groups that talk about farming, or there are local farming groups if they exist. So you just got to be creative, hunt around for these groups, and if they're national or international, whatever. Another good way, just a little tangent here, to maintain your mental health on social media is to turn off notifications so they don't pop up on your phone every 20 seconds. Probably most of you figured it out during the last couple of elections. But also, you can turn off messaging. You can, on both, if you have a business page, you can set an automated response to messaging. When you have a business and you have different messages coming in, whether through every app you have on your phone, on your email, it can be very overwhelming. It's not as personal, but if you are prioritizing your mental health, set an automated message on your social media with your phone number or your email, or directions on how to easily contact you. Don't make it hard for people. Make it as easy as possible, but maybe just not that easy with a DM, because that means it's very, very easy to lose a message when someone has written you on Instagram, and maybe you were like in bed, like me at 10 o'clock at night, half falling asleep, open a message, and then it doesn't even register. And now it doesn't show up as a new message. Now it shows up as read. And now the next day I'm not even looking at it. And so that's kind of dangerous. You're losing a customer, you're coming off as non-communicative. So automated messages may seem slightly impersonal. Try to make them feel as personal as possible. But I do recommend them for everyone's mental health. So I'm going to talk about ads. I don't know how many people here are really interested in ads. It's hard. I didn't get much. Oh, there's a chat. What's the chat say, Miko? Yes. Thanks, Erica. Before I talk about ads, I was with Erica the other day, and we talked about Sydney Claire Studio. There's 2 accounts I think everyone should follow. Sydney Claire Studio, which you'll see in the chat, the handle in the chat. About half of her posts are dedicated to helping people succeed if you want to put the work in to growing the account organically and not with paid ads. The other Instagram account I recommend is at Gary V, GaryVee. He's he's kind of an internet coach and motivational speaker, but he says so many good things. Many years ago, I fell into this job where I was delivering wine for a couple months in between boats. And yeah, he's just got great charisma and really direct to the point. So those 2, as far as like boosting your confidence and making you feel more knowledgeable about social media in regards to your business, those 2 accounts I think are the best.
Could you repeat the second one? Was it Gary? Gary?
Yeah, Gary, like the name. Let me see if I'll type it here.
GaryVee?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Jesse, thank you. Erica had done a little transposing of numbers of letters up there. So Sydney Claire Studio, Jesse did the corrected handle there. You can go back through some of her posts talking about how to hone your bio, things like that. Her 1-minute audits. You could probably even pay her for a 1-minute audit if you want. So ads. I'm going to go into ads if there's no other questions right now. Most people have their cameras turned off, so I don't know. How do we feel about Instagram highlights and pinned images these days? Pinned images, I think if you want to, obviously if you have some of content that really defines your brand, then stick with pinned images. I personally get a little annoyed when I see 3 pinned images because I'm like, oh, do I look at this or do I keep scrolling down? But I think it would be good for people just stumbling onto your brand to see, obviously they're going to recognize that those are the images that really define your brand, or maybe the captions, the stories underneath them. So I would say it just depends on the images you have, if you know how much they represent your brand, and if you want them to be foremost seen content on your page. Highlights, I think highlights are awesome, and they're just no effort. So absolutely keep as many highlights as possible. And I am not as aesthetically oriented as like a graphic designer. So you will see highlight reels. If people don't know what we're talking about, highlight reels are, see if I can, I don't know if you can see them. Those circles, those are all highlight reels. Now, some pages you'll go to and they will have consistent logo, like it looks like a logo for every highlight. That looks like more work than I'm interested in. And I don't see any point in that, other than if you're an interior designer, if you're a fashion designer, if you're a graphic designer, absolutely make sure everything on your page looks really consistent and bright and inviting. But if you are just a local business, that isn't one of those, isn't about design, then don't worry too much about having a cover image for each of your highlight reels, but do try to keep them on subject. So you type a little with these highlight reels, and I don't know if maybe not everybody knows what they're for, but you create stories, and I can go into stories in a little bit. I think I'll still have time. And if you want to save those stories, because stories was Instagram's answer to Snapchat, so they disappear in 24 hours. They don't have to disappear if you put them in a highlight reel. And at the bottom of every story, you'll see an option to save it as a highlight, and you get to choose which highlight reel it goes into. Just try to stay on subject, because when I go to your page and like say you, like in the EDC, there's places you can stay, places you can shop, places you can post about local education opportunities. If I'm visiting or new to Port Townsend and I stumble upon this page, I might look through one of those. So I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I don't need to go further into that. Just stay on subject and create a clear subject for each reel. Okay. All right, I'm going to go into ads unless someone wants me to talk about something else. Okay. So with your ads, the number one thing you want to do, besides not letting anyone else choose your audience, is figure out the geographic region for your audience. And you'll have a whole bunch of options. Just take your time when you start choosing your audience. When you first say you're going to boost a post, it'll say, choose an audience like your followers, choose your own audience, like a manual audience, or choose one of your previous audience. Do not choose an audience like I personally recommend, do not choose an audience like your followers. That is allowing Meta to choose who is going to look at your content, at your ad. I always do a manual choice. I always target everything manually. The first thing I target is based on region. So like, say for Race to Alaska, which is, it's an internationally viewed event, more so nationally, more so regionally. So depending on the content I was sharing there, and for the Port Townsend School of Woodworking, I would choose, I would focus on the cities, maybe Victoria and Seattle. Seattle's a hard one because it's such a big city. You're getting a lot of people looking at your content that may not be interested in it. So it can be kind of tough when you're choosing regionally. I like to make sure, at least for businesses in Port Townsend, that I always choose all of the towns in Jefferson County or on the peninsula. And so definitely do that first. And then you can comb through the targeting options. You can target so many different kinds. You could just target people who are identifying on the social media platform as women and only have your ad go out to women. You can target people who just bought a house within the last month or year. You can target people who have toddlers. It's kind of creepy, but I always say, if you use it for good instead of evil, then you're going to benefit. You're going to be able to really control who sees your ad and make sure it's your desired customer that's seeing it. I personally, this is not a across the board recommendation from people who work in social media, but I personally prefer and always choose short run ads. So maybe 1 to 4 days. I like to spend as much money as possible on ads that run just a few days. I always try to include one weekend day and one weekday if I can. So like a Monday, a Sunday, Monday, or a Friday, Saturday. That way, Sunday, Monday is great because people are more likely to be on their phone. Whether it's, an easy Sunday or Monday avoiding work, they're going to be looking at their phone. And whereas Friday and Saturday night, maybe if people are going out, maybe that's not the best night to share a post or run your ad. Don't start it Friday night and run it till Sunday morning. It's going to be seen less. I mean, most people are on their phone all the time anyway, so just take that with a grain of salt. But a lot of people will run an ad over a month and it'll just trickle the money for a month. I do not prefer that because I get really annoyed when I keep seeing the same ad. There is some benefit to, as far as brand awareness, to seeing the same ad over and over again. But what also happens is you get blocked. People see the same ad over and over again. They're sick of it. And they decide to block your profile entirely, which is just about the worst thing. It is the worst thing. It's not just about, it's absolutely the worst thing that can happen to you on social media. Right now, and by the way, everything I'm saying today is specific to April 20th, 2023. Things, like I said, things can change fairly quickly. But right now, I would say for most accounts locally, $25 will get a targeted audience locally for $25. For a $25 ad will get you seen by just about everybody you want to see you. And word of mouth will come from that. If it's compelling content or an interesting ad or the product is interesting, the people, the 1,000 or 2,000 people who saw the ad will talk about it to others. So that's a nice thing in a community like this. And I would run that for a day or two. That's what I usually do around here. $100 will get just either everyone in Port Townsend, almost everyone seeing you, or it will get a very targeted, like if you chose, let's say you chose only women who are into DIY or whatever, you'll get most of those people in Jefferson County, and some in, you could get some of them in Kalaloch or Kitsap too. A pretty good audience there. For $200, that is an amazing amount to spend locally. Most accounts locally won't spend that much money, and you'll get seen by just about everybody. I would definitely not run a $200 ad over the course of a month like I have seen it done here before. You just see it so many times. You see this, the same people will see the ad so many times, and it's really annoying. Any other thoughts on deciding between a reel and a story? Well, I created, over the last 2 days, I've created some pretty nice little reels for small businesses, each having less than 1,000 followers. And I have been crushed by the limited viewership they have had. I could have created these same reels for those bigger accounts and would have had thousands of views by now. I am struggling on these reels for these small businesses to get more than 1,000 views. So if the content is really compelling, please definitely do a reel. Put the time into that if you have good content. And you're at Port Ludlow, I feel like you would have a lot of really good content. And the tags, the keywords really matter. Make your caption as long as possible, because like I was saying to Jay before, the searches that people are doing Instagram will comb everything. They'll comb the words you're saying in the reel, whether you've got captions on or not. They'll comb your profile. They'll comb the caption below, the hashtags you add. I still add hashtags because sometimes I can't add keywords into my entire caption, or I want to hit a broader audience. So if I was giving a long caption about writing out a long caption about the resort at Port Ludlow, maybe I'd also want to put in hashtags like weekend trip or Seattle weekend trip to get people coming up from Seattle, or hashtag Olympic Peninsula, hashtag, a whole bunch of hashtags at the bottom if there's room for that. And then what you do when you're done with the reel is you share it to your own profile as a story. Whether people read, Amy asked whether people read captions longer than a paragraph. It doesn't matter whether they do or not. That caption is full of keywords just that will help people search and come up with your, help you show up in their feed. So for example, this also goes back to what Jay was saying. If you're looking for, or let's say, like what Mika was saying, did I watch a reel about sailing on Port Townsend Bay for a really long time? Did I watch it a couple times? All right. Well, now you're in Instagram's memory of being interested in the outdoors and sailing, and maybe even the song that was playing on that whatever reel. And if anything in your caption, your long caption says something about a music artist that's about sailing or the outdoors in Port Townsend, that's going to serve as a keyword, and it's going to help in a search later. So I don't know if I'm getting too in the weeds about that, but I'll back to Jesse's about a reel and a story. Share the reel, you make the reel, you share it as a story, super important. You hide tags, you hide profile tags. You think of all the profile tags of anybody who might be interested in sharing your story, and you type them all out on the story, and then you shrink them with your 2 fingers like this, really small, so nobody can see them. And now they're hidden. So now it doesn't look like a bunch of gratuitous, like I'm calling out everybody. Now it's just, they're hidden, and hopefully someone will share that. They'll share it onto their page, and then it'll draw people back to your profile. I would love to talk more about sharing. Before I answer Cindy's question, and before I get cut off, if some of you have to go, sharing is so incredibly important. I want to tell you about why sharing is so important, especially for people who are hubs of different vendors. Even if you just want to get seen more, sharing is super easy. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to, sharing to stories I'm talking about. It doesn't have to perfectly represent your brand. It can be fluff. It can just be fun. It's going to go away in 24 hours unless you save it to a highlight reel. It lets other people know you care about their business. It creates a culture of abundance. We're all lifting each other up. Where I'm sharing your product, maybe you'll share mine. Just give it a try. Maybe we can all start this tidal wave of sharing. It is the only way, besides buying an ad, to grow your reach without, I don't know, I guess you could say to exponentially grow your reach. If the resort at Port Ludlow shares Soak on the Sounds content, they're helping each other because and Soak does the same. Now we're talking about 2 very popular tourist destinations that are working together to lift each other up, and that's huge. It lets Soak on the Sound know that you care about them, or I'm just using them as examples. And this also, it increases your brand awareness, because if Soak then shares the resort's story, you get an option to share it in return. Like, oh, look, Resort at Port Ludlow shared our story, so now we're going to share that because they showed us love. We're going to share it back. Now the brand is reaching a whole other group of people that maybe hadn't known about Port Ludlow Resort before. Brand awareness is increasing. None of this has to be perfect. It can be fun, it can be silly, it can be dumb. It's only going to last 24 hours. And it helps you on the algorithm. I always like to use the dinner party analogy. If you go to a dinner party and all you do is talk about yourself, you are not being social. You're not being socially acceptable. We'll say that, because most people don't want to listen. There are, of course, there's some people who can get away with, if you're going to lunch with Jennifer Aniston, if all she wants to do is talk about herself, everyone's going to listen, right? But around here, when we go to a dinner party, we all want to talk, we all want to feel cared for, and we want to listen to others, and it's mutual, right? Social media is the same. And that is what Instagram and Facebook, it is still kind of a beautiful thing about what they insist on you doing. And that is promoting each other, or lifting each other up, talking about each other, creating a community atmosphere on social media, and sharing through stories is the easiest way to do that, hopefully. What frequencies do I have a couple more minutes, Cindy? Okay. Cindy asked, can you speak to reel templates and free music use? Okay, if you are already a business profile, your music choice is pretty crappy. Not gonna lie. What they just added is, when you scroll down through your music choices, it says original music. And they just added this. I think it was Erica or somebody that showed this to me, and I've been using it now. You don't have to use the crappy generic music for business pages. You can use this this original music and scroll through some of that and see if it fits your, and don't get caught up in templates. And that's what you were asking about. Templates are a struggle, man. I mean, it just looks like too much work to me. If you can somewhat intuitively choose a song and it happens to kind of fit to your music, make it easy on yourself. Don't get too caught up in the production of your reel, unless of course you are one of those designers and you are primarily advertising your product through social media. What frequency is ideal for posts and stories? Well, I mean, most of my presentation today is to not dedicate a big part of your life to posts and stories. And I will again say, if you have under 2,000 followers, it's just a huge struggle. I highly recommend, instead of making frequency for posts a priority, that you just go with an ad once a month and do those 12, just leave those 12 posts on your grid. Stories, I would do stories when you feel motivated. And if you can do once a day, that's great. It keeps people, it's only going to keep your followers and the people you tag. It's only going to keep your name present in the eyes of your followers and the people you tag. So if you're going to tag a bunch of other, and I'm not talking hashtags here, never use hashtags in stories, only use profile tags. So I would try to do once a day if you feel like it. Don't pressure yourself, at least once a day. You can post like 20 a day, that's fine. I mean, so I guess it depends on the user around here. We have a lot of older users around here, and I don't know if they might get really annoyed with 20 stories a day. Depending on the person, I don't know that I would, but a couple is great per day. Just whenever you feel compelled, when you see something that, 24, you can also go through your old posts and share those as stories. And if you see cool stuff and you can just say good memories, and then share that post as a story, maybe add a song to it. And I think my time is up. I'm sorry if I didn't give people enough time to ask questions, but I haven't seen any more questions.
Kim, is it true that you might be available to host, if we host a class here, would you be available in June or July perhaps to talk further about social media?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll plan on setting something like that up for the future and buying a Instagram ad to get the news out.
Yeah. Well, I hope this was useful for some people. Thanks for having me.
Super useful. Thank you, Kim.